how's it going, listeners? This is Gina Versa. We're on another episode of Serving Up Comics. Kind of a special episode. We're doing something for Free Comic Book Day. This is just very impromptu. I have a good friend of the show, Nikki Barraza. How are you, Nikki?
I'm good. How are you, Jean?
I'm doing good. Nikki, you were we have a lot of mutual friends. I think they've recommended you for the podcast, and we've been we've known each other for a while. We're friends. Podcasted.
Yeah, say that part too.
Yeah, exactly. Podcasted way back in the day. We're glad to have you on. Tell us a little bit about yourself for anyone.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me. That was like years ago that we did anything like this before.
Yeah. Do you remember what it was on?
Yeah, I do. Do you?
Oh yeah, it was I think Dr. Odyssey, right?
Yeah, Dr. Odyssey.
Oh, okay.
There's like lots of different topics I feel like we would talk about on that. But I know we did a few episodes. We did talk. I very much remember talking about Civil War. I don't know why that's in my mind.
No, that's all good. But sorry.
Captain America is a big deal to me, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, hello. I'm a comic fan, but my day job is a teacher. So I teach third grade right now. I've taught first, third, and fifth. So that's what I've been doing with my life the past few years, pretty much since the last time I podcasted anything. That's been taking up all my time. So I don't know what else to say about myself to intro me.
Oh yeah, tell us a little. No, it's all good. Tell us a little bit about just reading comics, how you got into it. You're telling me you're kind of a new fan.
Right. Well, so this is how I think of my comic journey. When I was younger, I feel like, looking back, I feel like comics are not marketed towards women, especially not women of color, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm Mexican American. And so I think when I was younger, I remember when the first Spider-Man came out with Tobey, I was in love with Tobey, and I was very much obsessed with Spider-Man. But there weren't things I felt like that were for me. Spider-Man was for me to admire, but not to aspire to be like him. I remember Mary Jane's the girl, so I really like Mary Jane. And I remember buying books about her, but not comics about her. And as I got older, and then there's all these more superhero movies coming out, it's I, as an adult, realizing, this is all really interesting to me, and I like these comic book movies and all these things, but I don't really know a lot about it. But I feel as I was growing up, none of this was made for me. And even now, and especially then, I'm talking maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago, when Marvel movies were really starting to take off and get big. Even then, and kind of still now, I feel like there is a weird feeling when you go in a comic book shop, at least as a girl, I'm feeling I don't know what I'm looking for. I don't know what I'm interested in. I don't know anything about the history of a lot of the big characters, and it feels overwhelming because you think of Superman and Batman and the big names. There's so much history there, and there's so many different stories there that it feels overwhelming to know where to even start. So it's kind of nerve-wracking going into a comic book store, but I kind of a few years ago just changed my mentality to be, don't worry about trying to catch up on things. Just you're reading for your own enjoyment, and that's all that it's about. So my mentality now when I do go into a comic shop is I'm just going to look around and see what covers look interesting to me, what superhero name sounds interesting to me. And that's how I choose what I want to read. And that's just my attitude towards it now. So it doesn't feel I think before it was almost like I was putting pressure on myself. I need to know so much, but now my mind is just, well, what am I going to enjoy reading? Who do I want to learn about? And typically I go towards female led stories, and there's a lot more of them now. And I think just all the characters you see now, I didn't grow up with any of that. And I wonder all the time, how is that affecting young girls growing up now? And I mean, I'm a teacher too, so you see like a lot of girls coming in with superhero things on their shirt and they get excited about it. um so it's just, I don't know where my point was. I'm going with it
Oh,
with
that's
this,
all good.
but but I guess that's my roundabout way of saying like that's kind of how I got into comics. Like it really was more like as an adult, and me like just saying I'm not going to have pressure and just find what looks good to me, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean that's really cool because I mean the kind of the fandom sort of culture is
Mm-hmm.
evolving. It's being more inclusive because I
Mm-hmm.
man, I remember when I was like going into comic stores, when I was like 10 or something, it was
Mm-hmm.
all guys or some, it's just like very much like it was very much I wouldn't say like yeah, like exclusionary, but yeah, it was kind of you know, kind of a boys club. So, it's really cool to see that because it's like more readers feel represented, especially like more female writers as well. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because it's like, and yeah, like 10 something years ago, there wasn't as many, and now kind of, opened it up a bit
Mm-hmm.
more. Do you have any character that you kind of follow right now? You know,
Um, for some reason, I love She-Hulk. Like I don't know what it was that drew me to her. There was years ago, it was like I don't know what the word is. Actually, it's behind me.
hmm.
Um, A Force Presents, and it was
Oh yeah.
like, yeah, and this is one of them. So it just has like little snippets of a handful, but they're all female
Hmm.
characters. So it had like Miss Marvel, Squirrel Girl, Black Widow, Mighty Thor, and it had She-Hulk in it. But so that was this actually was one of my first introduction to start reading comics, because it was just a good introduction point, and it was all women in the series in these volumes. But She-Hulk was my absolute favorite. I think what I like about her is they're all superheroes and they're super powered. And I feel like a lot of stories are they're trying to come to grips with their power and like
Hmm.
find their superhero-ness. But I feel like when I read She-Hulk, she knows she's a superhero, but she's
Hmm.
trying to deal with that in her like everyday life, in the
Yeah.
courtroom, in her job. So it's the reverse of it, I think, is what really interests me about her.
Yeah, I mean, like She-Hulk's the only Hulk I think that likes being in their Hulk form.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, certainly, yeah, she has that going. And then if you ever watched the 90s Hulk cartoon, she was like pretty impactful there. I'm not sure if you ever watched
Mm-mm.
that. It
I'll
was
put
on
it on
like
my list.
yeah, it's on like Disney Plus now, but it was on like UPN, and that was like one of the bigger like
Mhm.
She-Hulk whatever. So yeah, no, that's really cool. It's like interesting because yeah, I mean like I can only think from like a guy's perspective of like what like
Mhm.
characters like interest me, I guess.
Interesting. Yeah, and it's always I want to read about the girls.
Hmm. Yeah,
That's my thing.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
there's so much more now. I mean,
Yeah, did you find any like in just kind of watching the movies now? I mean, you've seen like Birds of Prey. There's a
mhm.
lot more like kind of like female driven like Marvel or DC characters. Like it's going to be a Miss Marvel
Um,
show.
Birds of Prey is probably my favorite. That's
Mm,
the shirt I'm wearing right now, Birds of Prey. Um,
it's great.
of
Yeah.
at least, I mean, at least of the DC films. Of Marvel, that's a hard pick. I might still say Birds of Prey is like my favorite thing. There's just a lot about it, and I feel like I'm learning more about Harley Quinn. I haven't read that many of her stories,
Hmm.
but I like the portrayal of her by Margot Robbie. And Birds of Prey was just very. There's a lot of little things about it
Hmm.
that I remember talking to an old coworker about. It's just little things that he didn't pick up as a guy. Like there was a part in like where they're interrogating her and they pull like a tampon out of her pocket. Like that to me was mind blowing that that was in a superhero film. Just that there was a tampon, or
Hmm.
there's a part where they're fighting and Black Canary's hair swinging and it's like, you want a hair tie? Oh yeah. It's like little
Yeah.
things like that that are like, oh, that makes it feel somehow realistic to me as a woman, like as they're
Hmm.
fighting. Cause yeah, I would want to put my hair up if I'm like trying to beat all these dudes. There's just little things all throughout them. I love that movie.
Yeah.
Actually.
No, I mean, the director being like female too certainly added
Hmm.
like a perspective as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
At the end, it's pretty great.
Yes.
Want to
Kathy
see
M.
her Empire movie whenever that's coming out.
No idea. I don't know. Good question.
Yeah, but no, cool. It's always like I'm always interested in like what like people are reading because yeah, I just read like Batman and like just really random stuff.
Yeah. I feel like of like big characters, that's what I'm reading. But then I also I feel like lately the comics I'm reading are not like superhero
Mm,
things.
mm-hmm.
Like, have you read Nice House on the Lake?
No, I haven't. Is
So
that from
this,
like? Mhm.
okay, so I feel like I've been reading things that are a little more like dystopian, and this is something that I realize, like this is me just walking in and picking off what looks interesting as opposed to trying to like figure things out. This is like a dystopian, it's kind of horror. Basically, it sets up like these people are invited to a house on the lake, and then
Mhm.
the world basically ends, and they don't know why they're there, or like they're safe where they are. So it's kind of mystery, it's kind of sci-fi, dystopian. Um, and then this one was the last one I read, Made in Korea. Have you read this?
No, I haven't.
Jeremy Holt. It's
Mhm.
another kind of, it's just like dystopian. It's almost like a Black Mirror episode. It's like robot
Interesting.
AI. I don't know. That's what my I've been drawn to the last few months, or like stuff like this that are a little
Independent.
like independent. Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's a
Anyway.
lot of really good independent comics out there.
Mhm.
Yeah, so people should check them out. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
definitely.
But yeah, going off of that, it was Free Comic Book Day,
Hmm.
and we both partaked. I think we go to the same comic store, right? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
I
There
think
we
so.
Undercity Comics. Plug that in
Undercity.
there.
Hmm.
Yeah, they hold my stuff. Give me a discount, but um,
Oh,
yeah,
fancy.
I guess so. Yeah. So do you have any early memories of like when you started going to Free Comic Book Day? Because I think that's a cool sort of
Hmm.
like event because it gets people that maybe never read a comic, maybe like
Hmm.
more casual fans in there because they're like, hey, free comics, some stuff's discounted. Uh,
Yeah,
you know.
I think I remember like in high school, I knew there was such a thing as free comic book day, but I never went. I never really understood where or how, I
Hmm.
guess. And it wasn't till I don't know how many years ago. I have this very vivid memory. I was with some friends. We went to the Renaissance Fair, and we came back and we had met up in Uptown near Undercity. And one of them remembered that the day, and they were like, "Oh, it's free comic book day." What? Oh, it is. And so I kind of was tagging along with them. That was my first experience of seeing like that, just the free things obviously you get. But also I just very vividly remember in Undercity is really good, and I always want to go there every year for free comic book day. They always have sales.
Hmm.
So if you want to get something or you're interested in something, it's like the best day in the world because a lot of stuff is half off, which is like a steal in my
Hmm.
opinion. So if there's something you've been wanting to read or learn about, like it's just the best day ever. Um, that was that was my first experience of it, and I remember it was towards the end of the day because we hadn't planned on going there. It was just like, oh, it's today. Oh, we're by the comic book store. It was at the very end of the day, and they had a lot left over because normally when you go, there's a maximum amount you can get.
Yeah.
But it was they were like near closing and they had so many. They were like, take as much as you want. Take so that I think that's why I remember it so much because they like basically they just gave us a lot. Um, and it was really, really exciting. That was like the best day.
Yeah, free stuff is
Hmm.
pretty cool, right? But
Do
yeah,
you
no,
remember your first time?
yeah. It was like 2007. And God, yeah, it was because I was trying to go to that one. It was at this like store that's not there anymore. It's called like Geeks or something.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
And yeah, I think I went because there's a free comic that tied into some storyline I was reading in like in the Avengers. So I think it was like 2007. I was like, I don't
Mm.
know, in high school or something. So I have like really vague memories, but I got
So
that.
long ago.
Hmm. I'm
It's
old,
like a
so.
million years ago.
Hmm. Too old, but yeah, that
Yeah.
was my first time at Free Comic Day.
Hmm.
So
Nice.
yeah,
Mhm.
reminiscing on the stories, but yeah, how do you feel? Just kind of like the comics that they had this year. Do you feel the Marvel obviously
Mhm.
always has some tying into like some event or whatever. DC has it, but they had a lot of cool things like Stranger Things had like a
Mm-hmm.
tie-in. This is from like Dark Horse, or like the Ninja Turtles
Mm-hmm.
had one, and they kind of like show you some of their maybe like older issues of like how the comics used to look in the 80s or something. What do you think of the selection
Hmm.
this year?
I feel like there was a lot, and then there's a limit to how many you can get. So I
Yeah.
didn't get lucky this time and get a bunch of free extra
Hmm.
ones. Um, I tend to pick things that, because I'm a teacher, I tend to pick the ones that I can put in my classroom for my kids to read. So there were a
Hmm.
lot of there were Pokemon ones. There was one Meow Max, something like that. I don't know. It looked cute. I was like,
Okay.
my kids will like that. There was one which I think was an old one because it looked familiar. Because I've noticed that now going so many times. If they didn't run out of one the year before, they'll put it out the next year.
They have it stockpiled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I noticed there was like a Rosa Parks one. I feel like that one was old. That's a good one to have in the classroom, like have her story in comic book
Hmm.
form. So there are things like that. Of the ones I picked out, because I noticed like the Marvel and the DC ones, I feel like those go the quickest.
Yeah.
And I
Pretty
don't
much.
know if you noticed this, but I feel like there was a portion of time, if you didn't get there early enough, then those ones would like just be gone
Yeah.
at a certain time of day and you'd get like kind of the leftovers.
Hmm.
But I don't know if they're better stocked now because I went kind of later in the day and they still had like the Marvel and DC
Oh,
ones,
yeah.
but not many. You could tell they were running low.
Yeah, I think they kind of like prepare, I guess, for any
Hmm.
shortage in stock of a
Yeah.
certain issue, especially like the more popular companies.
Hmm. But I did pick up, like, it's interesting you say how they try to make it, they're going to start tying it into things. Because one of the ones was this Judgment Day one,
Oh yeah.
Avengers, X-Men, Eternals, which actually this really intrigued me. I was reading through it yesterday and I was like,
Hmm.
where is this going? But obviously, this is going to be some big kind of event,
Yeah.
and pitting them all against each other. It looks
Yeah.
like an interesting setup to me, this
Hmm.
story. Um,
Yeah. The X-Men and the Inhumans are like the
mhm.
Klingons and the Federation. They don't like each other. They have a lot of similarities, but yeah.
Okay, okay. But this was interesting to me when I was reading it because it's very clearly the start of a new chapter of something, right? Like it's the beginning, and it was just making me think, because Free Comic Book Day, I feel like, is a gateway drug to
Hmm.
comics in a way. Like if you
Yeah.
don't know anything, right? Like that's the day to go and check things out. It's free. Just pick up, what looks cool to you. Um, and so this is like definitely something that someone could just start here and go from there. You don't need to know a lot, I feel like, to go from here, from where it started, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then too, I wouldn't like get too beholden to continuity because it's like it's always changing. They
Yeah, yeah,
retcon
yeah.
stuff all the time. So
They
you know,
do. You're right. But see, I didn't know that a few years ago. Like
yeah,
now I know that, but I wouldn't have known that walking into a shop. Anyway, the other thing, did you pick up this one, Marvel Voices?
I did not actually. I think that might have run out. Yeah.
Um, I didn't know anything about this. I don't know if stuff of this already published as like a bigger collection or book, but
Hmm.
essentially it's highlighting the voices that are not always at the forefront of the comic world. So there's a lot of queer, Black, Indigenous, people of color stories in here, which to me, this is another thing that's like, this didn't exist, when
Hmm.
I was a kid. To
Yeah.
see, these different like skin colors and their different backgrounds and their different, these different origin stories, even like the queer stories in here, like these are things that just were not as normalized.
Hmm.
And so you just feel, it's like just that simple representation matters. Like this was interesting that they now, like, they're putting this collection together. There's like a Filipino superhero in here. There's America Chavez is in here, which everyone's interested about right now, I'm sure. Moon
Yeah.
Girl.
Just in the movie.
I don't know. So this is just something that really sparked my attention, just because I feel like if you were walking into Free Comic Book Day and like seeing this as a young kid, um, like this is just very impactful because I
Yeah,
didn't have it when I was their
yeah.
age. So that looks really cool. It looks like it's going to be kind of like the A Force, like I said, of like the different stories kind of collected together. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Um, but you know, they had something similar. They mentioned there's a like a voices, and they'll have different like what's the word, like categories. There was one, my friend I took with me, she's queer,
Hmm.
and there was a pride one on the shelf, like a collection that she
Yeah,
pulled up, and she kind of pulled down and was like, whoa, like this is so cool. Like, so it was on sale obviously, so she bought it. But it
yeah.
was it was just interesting to see, you know, kind of her as an adult, like, whoa, look, like this is for me, like I'm getting this is so cool.
Yeah, no, it definitely is because it's like, I really appreciate like a lot of, especially comic creators,
Hmm.
like kind of like pushing for that because you have like characters like, like, what is it? I think it's like Tommy or Billy. When
Hmm.
I believe that's Tommy from Wanda's Kids. In the comics, one of them
Oh
is
yeah, he's
gay.
in here.
Hmm.
Wiccan.
Wiccan, yeah.
And yeah, look, Wiccan and Hulkling.
Best couple.
Hmm.
They've been
Cutest
going
couple
strong.
alert.
Hmm. Going strong for like 15 years or something. So
Hmm.
pretty good for comic books. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was cool. Oh, look, it's in the cover. Marvel Voices Pride. That's what my friend got.
Oh, nice.
Mm. Um,
Yeah, it's pretty.
yeah, I just thought it was neat.
Hmm.
Um, I had another comment about this and I forgot. Oh, I know. But it's also, and I think you mentioned it earlier when I was mentioning female characters. It's the writers too, though, you know, like diversifying the writers' room and the
Hmm.
artists and things like that. So that's something they mentioned at the start of this little free comic issue, is like it's not just about that, it's about who's being in the room creating the comics too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because I'm not sure if you ever read, maybe it was like 5 or 6 years ago, they had it's called like All New Marvel, and they kind of, certain characters like Sam Wilson replaced Cap, and like that's where
Hmm.
you had like female, so you need Jane Foster Thor.
Hmm.
And I wouldn't say like, because these are all like weird reactionary weirdos online, but you had like some pushback from like, all these like neck beards or whatever, and
Hmm.
they didn't like it, but it's just like, a lot of those like, a lot of those stories were pretty good, like the Jane Foster storyline
Hmm.
where she's like Thor and everything. They're
Yeah.
really cool. So yeah, it's like it's really, because it's not coming like from like a, I don't know, whatever like company. It's like more like the writers and everything, kind of like including some of these
Hmm.
characters. And yeah.
Yeah, because it kind of has to start there, right? Like the
Hmm.
creation of it all. Those people who are upset are like the people who make you feel uncomfortable stepping into a comic book shop.
Yeah, yeah.
The Venn diagram is a circle.
Yeah, they need to go outside more and talk to, talk to women, would,
Or not. They could
or
leave
not.
me alone.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
they could just
I'm good.
definitely go outside more. Go with that.
Yeah, but
But
go that way,
mhm,
not my way.
other way,
Our
yeah.
way.
But yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's really interesting, just kind of seeing kind of this perspective and everything. Kind of wanted to talk a little bit, just yourself as an educator as well, just kind of
Mm-hmm.
using comics to, make
Yeah.
kids more interested in literacy. Because I remember when I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
maybe like I was like 6. That's when I started like reading and collecting. I think like probably my vocabulary or something definitely
Mm-hmm.
improved. Do you have any
Oh,
thoughts on
for
that?
sure, for sure. Comic book. So, in talking about teaching, reading, the best way to get better at reading is just to read. Like it sounds
Hmm.
so simple and dumb, but it's as simple as that. It's just like any other skill. You would get better at it by doing it. And sometimes that's not always what parents want to hear. They're
Yeah.
just like, just make sure your kid is reading. But the biggest thing is, well, they're not going to read if they're not interested in it. And I feel like people might turn up their nose, but comic books are just as much reading as any other book. It might seem like, oh, it's frivolous or more
Hmm.
fun, but all the same components of literacy you're reading in a chapter book, you have in a comic book. There's still, obviously there's still phonics there, reading the text and the story in the background, but your brain, when you're reading, especially when you're focusing on comprehension, uh, it's doing the same kind of work. You're knowing the characters, you're making inferences about them, you're making predictions about what's going to happen. There's a problem, there's a solution, like all those elements that you get in any other book are in comic books. So I always encourage my kids, if that's all they'll read, like, I just want you to read
Yeah.
because you're practicing. So I'd rather you read comic books than read nothing. I
Yeah.
mean, because they're not going to get better. And that's a big component of balanced literacy, we say, is choice, and giving that the reader an option and what they want to pick, as opposed to like old school. And some schools are still like this. I remember when I was younger, like when we would be reading in class, you're reading out of the big book all together, like the same story. And
Yeah.
there's no, like, it's a lot of times not interesting. A lot of times those characters are not diverse. The stories are not diverse. That is what it is. But now I think in a lot of schools, it's changing where you want to diversify your students' library.
Mhm.
And that includes adding things like comic books, because they're absolutely super interested in reading comic books. 9 times out of 10, I feel like they'll pick a graphic novel over something else because it just looks cool.
Yeah.
Too.
There's a lot of
Like it just looks so
mhm.
much more interesting, all the colors, like and so it's definitely a gateway into getting them to reading and to being better readers. So I'm all for kids reading comic books. And like I said, a lot of times when I do go to free comic book day, some of my selections, I make sure to pick things that I can put in my classroom for my students, because I know they'll be interested in it. They love that stuff.
Yeah. Are there any characters or like books that you noticed your students are like drawn to?
Literally any graphic novel I put out,
Hmm.
they want it. Like I have Pokemon ones. I have there's a series called Bone that they'll
Oh
read
yeah, I read
through.
Bone. Yeah, I love that
Yeah,
one.
Zeta, Legend of Zeta, is that her name? Something like that.
Hmm.
I got one, I just put out, Last Kids on Earth, which I haven't really read through.
Okay.
But it's in my classroom library, so I hope it's appropriate. No, it's fine.
Yeah,
It's fine.
yeah, yeah. No, I think it's good. Yeah.
But there's like I guess they're making it a Netflix show or something. But that one, my
Yeah.
kids have all been, they just pass it around. Like one of them will read it and they pass it to the next kid, and they love it. They love that stuff. Those are kind of the main things. But there are, I notice now there's a lot of like DC or Marvel that are geared to young readers. And
Yeah.
I remember 2020, it must have been when the shutdowns were, they
Hmm.
had, you couldn't go to a physical store, but I remember there was a portion of time they had comics online to
Mm.
read, like on their website for
On the
free.
app. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was just online. It
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
even, you didn't even need the app. And I remember
Hmm.
sharing it with my students while they were at home, like
Yeah.
distance learning, because I was like excited. Hey guys, it's free comic book day. Like, and I remember making a little video, like reading a comic to them.
Oh,
But it was all like Marvel characters, and it was geared, it was like specifically meant, for
for
younger
kids.
readers.
Yeah.
So it's
Can
really cool.
Yeah, no,
Mhm.
definitely. So yeah, how was that like just kind of doing through Zoom? I mean, we're kind of recording this through an app, that app now, so I'm not sure if it brings back any memories, but yeah, kind of curious.
Yeah, it kind of does. I just remember at the time, I mean, it was kind of terrible all around for everyone, just being quarantined and blah, blah, blah. But that was like at the very, very beginning of it, the shutdowns. And my kind of journey, it's a whole long story with my teaching where I was, but I was long-term subbing that year. And I was with this fifth grade class. But I had known them, I had long-term subbed in the other fifth grade classes of that school that same year. I basically knew every fifth grade student. It was a weird thing. But by the time I actually was in charge of their class, this group, I'd had them maybe a week before we shut down, maybe
Okay.
2 weeks. But when we went into it, so it was kind of weird because I'd only had them for a short time, and then I was in charge of them while we distance learn. The teacher was on maternity leave,
Hmm.
and but it was kind of lucky because I knew them, just because I had to work with the whole grade throughout the whole year. weird situation.
Yeah.
But so just remember for me at that time, I was trying to make a lot of like just read aloud videos or like showing how to do a different craft or something
Cool.
every day, to try to give them some sense of stability or routine. Like I would post
Yeah.
something every day, which I wasn't asked to do or expected to do, but it was just, I felt like um, the kids needed something at home, stuck at
Hmm.
home. And my schedule, like I was trying to make routine for them, but mine was totally off. I was like, I like read alouds, like doing comics and stuff, like filming for them. I would be up to at like 4 a.m,
Oh, wow.
like doing, like I just had no routine or schedule. Like my sleep was crazy, so I'd be up at like 4, like filming something, and then like sleep for an hour, a few hours, and then like post their link and their assignments and the videos online, and then like knock out. Like it was
Yeah.
weird.
Hey, it was COVID. There was no
but
time or space or
but they
whatever.
definitely, so all those videos I made for them are unlisted. This is kind of embarrassing. I don't know if I want to say this, but I'll tell you anyway.
Sure.
That I would post things for them, but it was always unlisted. Like you can't just go search for me. I don't think anything will pop up from that time.
Hmm.
But the comic book video, like maybe a year ago, I happened to open my account and I noticed that the comic book read aloud video I made for them had like over 100 views,
Hmm.
which that unlisted link only went to like 26 kids.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I'm like, was it like a really great video and they were sharing with their friends, or was
Hmm.
it like super embarrassing and they were sharing it with their friends? Because I'm
Yeah.
like, a lot of those videos, like a lot of the kids, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 of them like actually watched it or tried some of the things I did in them. But that one had a lot of views. And I'm like, why is that? Let's say it's the magic of comic books.
Yeah.
That was the most popular with the kids.
Yeah. I could buy that. I mean,
Because I just thought it was odd. Don't go looking for it. You won't find it.
okay. I won't.
Please
But
don't.
but that's cool. You became like a YouTuber though for like a year, right?
For like a
Yeah.
class of fifth graders. Like,
Yeah. You were like their personal like blogger or something.
I guess. Yeah, I never thought of it like that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess it kind of was. It's a weird life.
Yeah, COVID was pretty weird, yeah.
Hmm.
But no, that's really cool, kind of like how a lot of people, or excuse me, a lot of teachers and education kind of like adapted and,
Hmm.
made it work. Because, yeah, I mean, I would hate to kind of be in that situation as well. I mean, it's very tough and difficult, no sort of precedent. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's weird though, because most teachers, if you ask them, will say this year has been harder
Mm,
than last year where we had to distance learn. That's a whole other topic though.
yeah.
I won't get into that right now.
No, yeah, it's
That
kind
I
of,
could
yeah.
I could rant a long time about teaching, but
Yeah.
another time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we go on many rants on this podcast, so you'd feel right at home.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, that's definitely commend you for that, for making it through COVID. So
Thank you.
yeah. And then, is there any other way kind of use like comics to help educate, or just any like interesting ways? Because I mean, the MCU, all the Marvel shows, video
Hmm.
games out there, really kind of draws you to the comic if they're really big fans of that. I'm just kind of curious how they view kind of like Marvel and all,
I
DC and all that.
my students do love all that stuff, but they also know I love that. So
Hmm.
maybe they just talk about it to me more. But I definitely my classroom is superhero theme. Like I have a lot of Marvel stuff up on my walls, and they know that. So sometimes they'll just ask me things about the characters or what, your superhero. We do a lot of classes do like your superstar of the week or like your
Hmm.
student of the week, but mine's like a superhero of the week. And they ask each other questions every week. They always ask what every kid's favorite superhero is. But I know it's like it's
Mhm.
because of my influence, I think, more than
Yeah.
anything else. They're in my superhero classroom.
Mhm.
So that's kind of at the forefront of their mind. I do have a lot of kids, at least this year, who are very artistic. And so sometimes I think, and I haven't given them a chance to do this year, um, but some kids love to draw their own comic books too, which is, I think, fun to see. I know we talk about reading a lot, but then reading and writing are like super closely linked together when they're learning to do one or the other. Um, so giving them a chance to write things like that out is challenging for them, but they really love it too. I have a lot of kids who they'll just on their free time, like that's what they want to do. They want to try to draw their own comics and they make up their own characters. It's really, that's pretty neat to see
No,
too.
that's cool. Yeah, no, that's good to it's good to encourage because it's like I think I remember when I was a kid, I did a lot of drawing and like making up characters, but I drew on a desk one time all these imaginary characters. And you got
On your
like
desk,
yeah.
did you get
Oh,
expelled?
no, I
That's
think I
a
just mhm.
that's a crime.
Yeah,
That's
I think
terrible.
yeah, I think I just got a detention or something, but yeah.
Yeah, kids do that. Yeah, sometimes I'll catch, I have a lot of artists. They make up little stories all the time. Uh, they're I've got an interesting class of kids. I love them. They're interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely not that age,
They've
but
got very creative minds.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to encourage that because yeah, I mean, a lot of creativity,
Hmm.
definitely want to like nourish and everything. Uh,
Yeah, I have one student who's really artistic and her mind is just, I don't know if I could explain it. And I
mhm,
honestly feel like I will never have another student like her. She's very hard to do like the school things where like it's very structured and strict and like you have to do it this way or write it this way. But her creativity is just so insane that I feel like she struggles with certain things in school, but she's going to be so, I'm so curious to see what she'll do when she's older because she's such a little artist and she makes up all these crazy stories that I know it's like doesn't fit into the paradigm of what school is,
mhm,
but I feel like she's going to be so successful in whatever she does. And I wish that creativity like that was valued more in your day to day classroom because the
yeah,
way it's structured, it's kind of like that has to fall to the wayside. But I know she's going to do like such amazing things when she's older.
yeah.
Anyway,
Give it time, yeah.
yeah.
No, gotta definitely rep the students.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say I'm really curious. Just kind of wrapping up here. What character they usually gravitate towards? Just like favorite superhero,
My
whatever.
kids, my
Yeah.
kids.
Mhm.
I feel like the common is Black Panther,
Oh, okay.
Spider-Man,
It's always
and
gonna stare.
villains.
Hmm.
Oh, there was one villain. Oh gosh, I'm blanking.
Could
Oh,
describe it?
oh, I know who they were super into was Venom.
Oh yeah, Venom. Yeah, well, he's like an anti-hero.
Yeah. So that they would ask who's your favorite superhero, who's your favorite villain, a lot of times to each other. And for villain, they always say Venom. Like 99% of the time. They're all
Yeah,
super into Venom.
yeah. He's
Mhm.
something about him just always draws people to him. Just the
Yeah.
costume. You
Yep.
know.
Those 8-year-old kids of mine are crazy about him.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah. It's kind of like any other. I'm just really curious, just kind of, because it's really, I mean, at least for me as a comic book reader, you see like a lot of comic books or like graphic novels that get banned, and for what you
Mm,
could like kind of speak to that, or just from like that perspective, I'm really curious because you see like stuff, I think it was recently, I think it was like Maz that got banned.
oh
um,
yeah.
yeah, I was just really curious, just kind of like on a more serious note, if you have any like kind of thoughts on that.
Well, I think banning books is ridiculous, just in
Yeah.
general. Uh, I feel like for me personally, in my classroom, some of those stories aren't for young
Hmm.
kids anyway.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think the news or things or media want to make it seem like you're shoving a lot of not age appropriate things down
Hmm.
young children's throats when you're not. When like teachers know what a kid can and can't handle.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of those texts are important. And as students get older and they can understand more, like those are good texts to read, like Mouse, like you said. Um, there's a lot of different things. I lost my train of thought for a second.
No, it's all good.
Um,
But yeah, it's just like common sense and like what what
yeah.
thing is like age appropriate.
And I think you can't be like censor things like
Hmm.
that. Like kids are gonna know. And my teaching program was with UCLA and they're very focused on social justice.
Hmm.
And so I follow a lot of anti-racist educators and try to learn from them. And if a kid, so I'm thinking about race now specifically,
Sure.
but it kind of applies to lots of general things that are controversial. Like if a kid is old enough to notice it, they're old enough to talk about it. So things like, like I think when I was, 5 or 6,
Hmm.
I noticed like, oh, I'm brown. My friends are not brown. Like that kid has darker skin than me. Like you notice those things at a very young age. So it's not controversial to me to talk about it, about why we have those differences. What does that mean? And how we're experiencing the world differently. That's not to say there's not different age appropriate ways to talk, like from grade to grade. And I've worked with kind of K through 6 in my career. So like how I talk to a kindergarten about stuff like that's very different than talking to a 6th grader. But that doesn't mean they can't have those conversations. And a lot of the content that I think people are scared about or want to get banned are things that kids notice anyway.
Yeah.
And it's, you want to talk about it. And in my opinion, you want to give them, and I think just in general too, like a big thing about teaching kids is to be critical and not just take everything at face value. That's
Hmm.
something that's really important to me. So with any of these topics, I don't know any teacher that's ever forced an opinion down a student's throat. It's more about giving them context, giving them understanding, giving them tools to research things, and giving them the critical thinking skills to take everything that they've learned and make up their own mind about things. So when I hear things about like banning books, it's controversial. It's like, that means you don't trust your kids.
Yeah.
And I have an issue with that. Like, what are you doing then? Why are you a parent? Why?
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
so it's just all a bunch of nonsense to me. I don't think we should be banning anything.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, it's very well said. Yeah, I mean, I would.
that's my soapbox.
No, it's all good. It's like Stan Lee. He had a Stan soapbox back in the day. Because I was gonna say, and it's very, very well said. I agree with everything because it's like, if you look at comics back in like
Hmm.
70s, 80s, they have like a lot of really good allegory and moral lessons. Like
Hmm.
X-Men is about like discrimination, segregation.
Hmm.
If you read something like it's the famous graphic novel, it's like God Loves, Man Kills. That was an X-Men graphic novel, and there's like a lot of really good morality sort of lessons on just
Hmm.
like because it's about like this pastor that's trying to like quell anti-mutant
Hmm.
rhetoric. And I think there's like a scene where it's like against like saying that someone people like won't be more right if like if they're like Nightcrawler. And then I think there's like a famous I forgot, it's like Kitty Pryde, like Shadowcatch, kind of like says like I'd rather like be friends with like Nightcrawler than like someone that would like blindly hate. So
Mm.
there's a lot of really good morality lessons too in comics when you think about it. I like,
Oh, for
obviously,
sure.
yeah, with great power comes great
It's
responsibility.
responsibility.
Hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Which is why, just this is kind of a little tangent. Sometimes
Sure.
I feel like people's reactions to shows and things are like, oh, they're shoving this message down my
Yeah.
face. But it's like, well, since the beginning of time, comic books have been doing that. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. They've always been about something. It's
don't
just
be shocked.
yeah, when they say like, oh, it has like it's too political now, it's like no, they always kind of been
Mm,
like that. Yeah.
yeah,
Because like
exactly.
Superman in his like first comic is beating up landlords and you know stuff like that. So
Yeah,
they've always
I
been
mean,
political.
there's always, and I think again that's the thing. One thing we focused on was critical media literacy, in
Mhm.
my teaching program, because it's always, you're consuming media all the time, but it's asking the questions: who's making it, what is the message, what are they trying to do you
Yeah.
agree with the message or not? So there, like you said, there's political things, it's, but just be critical.
Yeah, definitely.
Goes
And
for
then
everything.
yeah, exactly. One last question for you, if just kind of
Mhm.
getting to the end of the thing. Is there anything you would want to see like in like comics going forward? Because they are trying to make it more like all ages, and like if you look at the original sort of comics, they always kind of were. Like I know it has like an older audience now, but like from like the '60s, they were more like all ages. Would you want to see more comics geared
Mm.
to being that? I'm just curious.
Good question. Because, well, I feel like there are some comics I see that are very clearly like they're not for kids.
Yeah,
And I
like the
feel like,
boys or yeah.
yeah, and I feel like the last few years, I don't know, and maybe I've just noticed that more, that there's a lot that are geared towards adults where it's like, oh, I wouldn't share this with my students
Yeah.
or my or whoever. But um I I feel like at the same time though, there's been a lot more comics being made that are geared specifically for kids, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like I think what you're saying is, in the past it was kind of everything was all ages, but now I feel like it's kind of branched off,
Yeah.
and there's like a, but I think there's a big selection for kids now,
Hmm.
and then there's like that big selection for adults.
Yeah.
And I think that makes me think of the comics I showed you earlier, like the Made in Korea I picked up, and the Nice House on the Lake. Those are
Hmm.
very much for adult audiences, and I really enjoy them. So I feel like there's that market in both places. Um, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I would be fine if there's things that are more geared all ages too. I think, I guess I'll say the more the merrier.
Hmm.
I mean, there's so many stories to create and to be told. I am any new thing, I'm here for it. I'm fine. Like, as a good story is a good story. I read things for that are for children all the time and enjoy it. Part of
Yeah.
it's my job, but also, I mean, I like a good children's book too.
Yeah,
So a good
exactly.
story is a good story. I'm not mad about it.
Very well said. Yeah. No, definitely if it's like, it's a good story, definitely read it, No
Hmm.
shame in that.
Yeah.
But yeah. But cool, cool. Yeah, Nikki, I just want to say thanks just for being on the show. This has been really, really cool. Just hearing your perspective, kind of getting this like perspective from like a teacher. I'm always like very appreciative of like really cool, understanding teachers. So definitely, want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you for having me on. This was fun.
No, definitely. And if is there any where social media wise, if you want to promote that or anything they're out there?
I mean, I'm on Instagram, but it's just, Nikki underscore is underscore nuclear. But I mean, that's just like my personal account, because
Gotcha.
I'm just a casual comic book fan, reader, teacher. But that's my Instagram if anyone should like to join me there.
There you go. Yeah. See, like, yeah, talk comics and all that. But yeah,
Mhm.
cool, cool. But yeah, no, this has been really wonderful. Thanks for being on again. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, G92. You can follow the Waffle Press at the Waffle Press on Twitter, at the Waffle Press Podcast on Instagram. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We've been professionally unprofessional.